As India and China face off in the high mountains, Indian Navy ships and submarines sail out in the Indian Ocean. As troops in Ladakh stare the dragon down from Galwan to Pangong Tso, will the Indian Ocean be the next battleground? Can India checkmate China in the Indian Ocean? That's our top focus on India First. Focus story is the current situation along the 833-kilometer long line of actual control in Ladakh, where Indian and Chinese troops are standing in some places virtually eyeball to eyeball. In some instances, it's been claimed that the Chinese are moving back additional forces. Is that really true? Well, both India and China have now deployed unmanned aerial vehicles to keep an eye on the other side of the hill. India Today's editor defense Abhishek Bhalla gets you our top story tonight.
For 2 months now, Indian and Chinese troops are standing eyeball to eyeball along the line of actual control in Ladakh. After the deadly clash on June 15th, there are some signs of cooling down at the Galwan flashpoint. While Galwan has dominated the headlines for days now, the focus is back on Pangong Tso, where China is mobilizing its men and machinery. India today has accessed these new satellite images posted by popular open source intelligence Twitter handle distrust. These satellite images reveal at least 4 new Chinese support positions between Finger 4 and Finger 6 areas, believed to be in the making since June 13th. One of these camps has been set up south of the main camp across the river. Boats, tents, and equipments are seen in these camps from the high-resolution satellite images. That is not all. China is trying to block Indian patrolling in the Daulat Beg Oldie area between patrol point 10 and 13. Top sources tell India Today the Chinese could be planning to encroach areas near the Karakoram Pass. The Ministry of External Affairs is keeping the heat on China. It also confirmed the mobilization of troops by Chinese. In a statement, the MEA said that China has been taking unilateral actions in violation of the agreements and attempting to change status quo along the LAC. It said that the conduct of Chinese forces this year has been in complete disregard of all mutually agreed norms.
कथनी और करनी में बहुत अंतर है। चीन गलवान के इलाके में थोड़ा पीछे गया है, तो चीन का मूवमेंट और मोबिलाइजेशन ऑफ ट्रूप्स को मद्देनजर रखते हुए शक होता है कि चीन की नीयत कुछ और है। जिस तरीके से डेप्सांग प्लेन में और डेमचौक के इलाके में उसकी हरकत देखी जा रही है, ये साफ जाहिर होता है कि चीन कहता कुछ और है और करता कुछ और है।
Sources add that the Indian Army has plugged gaps along the line of actual control to stop these Chinese transgressions. Meanwhile, Army Chief General M.M. Narwane, who was camping in Ladakh for 2 days, left for Delhi after ground assessment. He is set to brief the political leadership on the prevailing situation.
China may have pulled back some additional troops and vehicles from the Galwan flashpoint, but there is massive Chinese logistics and administrative deployment near Pangong Tso Lake, which is a cause for grave concern. After Chinese treachery in the Galwan area, sources say the People's Liberation Army can clearly never be trusted. Until China completely withdraws and de-inducts from this region, the forces are deployed for the long haul. With cameraman Kripal Singh in Leh, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. The Chinese treachery is a cause for grave concern. We've seen that at Galwan. Of course, Galwan is a high point for India, where we were able to push back the Chinese transgressors from the line of actual control. It's a reason for shame for the Chinese soldiers. As some analysts say, that is the first time the Chinese have lost over 40 soldiers after the 1979 Vietnam War. Now, of course, the Indian Army is very extensively and robustly deployed along the line of actual control. But you have to know what's happening on the other side of the hill. And this is where unmanned aerial vehicles and satellite imagery plays a very crucial role.
The Galwan skies are buzzing with activity. India and China, currently in a standoff on the line of actual control, are flying drones to keep tabs on each other's positions. The Indian Army's 14 Corps has deployed Heron medium-altitude long-endurance drones. They have an endurance of over 24 hours and can fly 10 kilometers high. Troops on the ground are also equipped with man-portable drones launched by soldiers. These drones have the capability to operate in adverse weather conditions and provide real-time video footage. The Chinese, on the other hand, are using tactical quadcopters. Sources have revealed that Chinese drones have been spotted over 4 Indian positions in eastern Ladakh lately. The drones are being used for tactical reconnaissance. With Sandeep Unithan in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Abhishek Bhalla for more on the story. Abhishek, along the line of actual control, the Chinese seem to have withdrawn, at least that is what is being said, additional vehicles and troops withdrawn from Galwan. But can India take China at face value, especially at a time when they're building up in Pangong Tso and perhaps even Depsang?
To put things in context, Gaurav, trust deficit has been, the biggest casualty of this standoff, because, there have been a series of talks between military commanders at different levels. On the 6th of June, Corps Commander level talks took place. On the 22nd of June, Corps Commander level talks took place. But it did not transpire on the ground. In fact, on the 22nd of June, when the top military commanders were speaking to each other, there was a build-up at Patrol Point 14 in Galwan. And as of now, what I'm hearing from sources is that it's good that there's a mutual agreement for disengagement. But what is happening on the ground is completely contrary, because there is a build-up not just in PP Point 14 as well as Pangong, but in some other areas, as our reports have pointed out. As far as Galwan and Pangong are concerned, there is hectic negotiation happening. Talks are in place to make sure that some kind of a resolution can finally happen. Unless there is pullback in these two places, peace and calm will not return. Fingers crossed, things will be fine in days to come. Discussions between top-level commanders are likely in the days to come. So we can only say that a resolution is something that both sides are hoping for.
When it comes to, when it comes to a treacherous adversary like China, you can't just keep your fingers crossed. You have to keep your powder dry, and you have to keep the adversary guessing about what your next move is going to be. And that's exactly what the Indian Army is doing on ground. Contrary to a lot of impressions that are being created elsewhere, the Indian Army is very robustly deployed along the line of actual control. But this is not the only ace up India's sleeve. Indian Ocean region, and that is something, the Malacca Straits, the choke points, the Indian Navy is out there at sea. Indian Navy ships, submarines, aircraft, and that's something for the adversary to beware. Shiv Arur and Sandeep Unithan bring you this report.
It's been 50 days since the India-China border standoff in Ladakh began. For 50 days, the Chinese have mobilized relentlessly. As India too mobilizes its tanks and weaponry, preparing for any eventuality against an unpredictable and treacherous adversary, the Indian establishment isn't only focused on Ladakh, but looking at other options to turn the screws on China. experts advising the government are strenuously arguing that while the Indian Army keeps the proverbial powder dry in the Himalayan frontier, it is the Indian Navy that is truly poised to pile the pressure on China. It is plain to see that an economic power like China is hugely dependent on the free flow of its energy and goods through the Indian Ocean to the Middle East and Europe, an area of ocean that is fully India's home turf. While the execution will be necessarily complex, here's the broad 5-point advice the government is receiving from the National Security Advisory Board and from think tanks. Threaten Chinese shipping in the Indian Ocean. Aggressively enforce sea denial in the Indian Ocean. Deploy and project power in the Western Pacific. Change India's neutral status on the South China Sea situation. And continue to upgrade ties with Japan, Australia, Vietnam and Indonesia. The Chinese are choked from accessing the Indian Ocean from their mainland, but have relentlessly built bases and assets in the area at Djibouti, Sri Lanka and Pakistan's Gwadar, to name a few. The Indian Navy has also detected several intrusions by Chinese vessels in the last few years, including nuclear submarines in 2017 and 18, a suspicious research vessel in September last year, and 3 military vessels headed for an exercise with Pakistan just 7 months ago. India Today has learnt that several former Indian Navy chiefs have also spoken out about the urgent need to exercise the naval option, to pile the pressure on the Chinese. The solution, they say, to the Himalayan mobilization may not be over land at all. Bureau Report, India Today.
So for those who think India's on the defensive, clearly not. There are many options which will be exercised at the appropriate time. But there was a time when the Indian Navy enjoyed an advantage over the Chinese Navy. The Chinese Navy has desperately been trying to overcome that advantage. To an extent they have. But India is also ramping up. Of course, we're also looking for new aircraft carriers, new nuclear submarines, other weapons of war. And India Today's Shivarur now gets you details about how India is ramping up.
As the Ladakh border simmers, the Indian Navy is focused on its domain, the ocean. With the Indian government considering several options to pressure China at sea, let's tell you about where things stand just in 3 crucial maritime asset areas. India has a single aircraft carrier, while China has 2 active aircraft carriers. India has a single nuclear attack submarine. China has at least a dozen. India has over a dozen active conventional submarines. China has over 50. But India is still speeding up acquisitions. India's indigenous aircraft carrier, the new Vikrant, is making steady progress and will add to India's force projection strength in the Indian Ocean in the next couple of years. In fact, this satellite image from last month shows the massive ship moving from its construction berth to a new position on its own power, indicating that there has been very visible progress in this complex project. In another crucial force acquisition focused in part on the China threat in the Indian Ocean, India has just ordered 24 US-built MH-60 Romeo anti-submarine warfare helicopters earlier this year, with the first 3 to be delivered by December itself. These helicopters come armed with anti-ship missiles and torpedoes capable of engaging both ships and submarines at standoff distances. While the Indian Navy has made progress in aircraft carriers and anti-submarine helicopters, it is still woefully short of submarines of both the nuclear and conventional kind. But here too there is progress, with existing conventional submarines being augmented with 6 Scorpion-class submarines and plans to build 6 additional submarines of a type yet to be chosen. On the nuclear submarine front, the Indian military complex is developing India's first nuclear attack submarines as well. Ships, aircraft carriers, helicopters and submarines will only be the means to an end. What India now needs is a focused policy on how to apply force to pressure China. Bureau Report, India Today.
And I quickly want to bring in India Today's Shiv Arur for more on this story. Shiv, the Indian Navy could well be the dragon's Achilles heel, especially when it comes to supplying energy needs, when it comes to supplying food, because the China-Pakistan economic corridor, again, could be a choke point for our Indian Air Force to do its job. So bring us details about how the Navy is gearing up.
You know, Gaurav, we know that the naval option always exists, and this is something that we can be sure that the government is under advisement on and is considering. It's always part of the strategic options. But let's make no mistake that the naval option will always be, you know, a last resort. But of course, we're not just talking about any kind of, you know, action, any kind of kinetic action in the Indian Ocean region, but there are ways and means for the Indian Navy, which controls the Indian Ocean in large measure, you know, to actually exercise its leverage and, you know, turn the screws, as it were, on the Chinese. The Chinese are fully dependent on the sea lanes of trade that run right through the Indian Ocean, you know, to fuel their economy. It's fully dependent on the goods that they export, and therefore, if India threatens those sea lanes, you know, it matters to China in a very big deal. And we all know that money, power and economy and strength of that kind matters more to China than anything else. So there are things that the Indian Navy can actually do. It controls the sea lanes of communication, establishment of a presence in the Western Pacific, removing India's so far neutral status as far as the very sensitive South China Sea issue is concerned. All of these are places where India can actually, you know, pile the pressure on China. The Indian Army in Ladakh is holding its ground. That face-off will continue for the long haul. But in the meanwhile, to leverage against China and pile on the pressure, the Indian Navy is being looked at as a very clear option. So apart from, you know, choking China in many parts of the Indian Ocean region, India, of course, has already established evolving ties with Australia, the United States, Japan, the Quad, so to speak, Indonesia and Vietnam and Thailand as well. So all of these relationships will also play a very big part in encircling China in the same way that it has attempted to encircle India and establish its footprint in the Indian Ocean. So that pressure, definitely something on the cards.
Oh, absolutely. Shiv, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. There's another very important aspect here. Look at our soldiers. Our soldiers are deployed at altitudes up to 18,000 feet. They're staring the dragon down, eyeball to eyeball. You're seeing what's happening. The Indian Air Force is flying combat air patrols, whether it's the Sukhoi 30s or the Mirage 2000s. All of that sends out a signal. But what signal are our netas sending, our political leaders? There's an intense Congress versus BJP battle. When Congress, BJP, every political party needs to stand united to face an adversary like China, unfortunately they aren't. So what's happening in Delhi? The Bharatiya Janata Party today accused the Congress Party or the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. Sonia Gandhi, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Rahul Gandhi, they're all a part of the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, and the allegation is that they received funds from the Chinese.
Stung by the relentless and direct attacks by Congress against Prime Minister Modi, the BJP has launched a massive counter-offensive. Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad has said that the Gandhi family-controlled Rajiv Gandhi Foundation received 90 lakh rupees from the Chinese in 2005 to 2006, allegedly in violation of norms. Quoting Foundation's annual reports of financial year 2005 to 2006, the Union Minister alleged a series of wrongdoings. He said the donations broke existing laws and that the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation supported free trade agreement between India and China. He blamed lobbying by RGF for an FTA with China for the 33 times jump in trade deficit between 2003-2004 and 2013 to 2014. The Union Minister alleged connection between the donation and an MOU signed between the Congress and the Chinese Communist Party in 2008.
The trade deficit between China and India, because of all this lobbying by the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, after they received a bribe from the Chinese embassy, and the way they comprehensively campaigned for free flow of FTA in all respects showed this great rise.
The Congress party has hit back, listing out numerous visits to China by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, past BJP presidents and RSS delegations.
चीन से लड़ने की बजाय मोदी जी और उनकी पार्टी भारतीय जनता पार्टी कांग्रेस से लड़ी। मेरा ये उनसे अनुरोध है, आज पूरा देश इकट्ठा है। झूठ और असत्य देश को बरगलाने और भटकाने से काम नहीं चलेगा, सच्चाई का सामना करने से काम चलेगा।
The Congress also blamed the rise in trade imbalance with China on the policies of the NDA government, which the party claimed were initiated when Modi was the Gujarat Chief Minister.
The Congress-BJP face-off over China has turned murkier now, with allegations flying thick and fast as skeletons tumble out of the closet. With camera person Pradeep Gupta, this is Anand Patel in New Delhi for India Today.
I quickly now want to shift focus to Pakistan, where Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan, also called either Taliban Khan or the Mayor of Islamabad, he praised Osama bin Laden, called him a shaheed. You don't believe me? Hear him.
मुझे कभी नहीं भूलता वो भी एक हमारे पाकिस्तानियों के लिए बड़े दो शर्मिंदा वाक़यात जिसमें हम सब बड़े शर्मिंदा हुए। एक हुआ जी, उसामा बिन लादेन को इन्होंने अमेरिकन ने आके एबटाबाद में मार दिया, शहीद कर दिया। उसके बाद क्या हुआ? सारी दुनिया ने हमें गालियां निकाली, बुरा हमें कहा।
I want to quickly bring in India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan for more on this. Geeta, Pakistan remains on the Financial Action Task Force grey list for inaction against terror. This perhaps is the reason their Prime Minister's sympathy for terrorists.
Well, not just the fact that the Prime Minister called Osama bin Laden globally designated terrorist who was killed by United States of America in an operation carried out on Pakistani soil. Not only did he call him a martyr, he called him a martyr in the Pakistani parliament, Gaurav, and that is in itself a shocking development. Now we know that the Pakistani Prime Minister has been known in the past to support such terrorists and terror networks, but it will not go down well with the international community, particularly their own strategic allies, the United States of America, and expect a lot of strong reactions coming from within Pakistan as well. Those who always questioned the administration harboring terrorists and harboring someone like Osama bin Laden, that has not gone down well and embarrassed an entire lot in Pakistan. They will certainly be asking questions from Imran Khan as to how did he dare to call Osama bin Laden a martyr in none other than the parliament of Pakistan itself.
Shameful and shocking. Geeta Mohan, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. But there is a question for many in India, those who go and hug Imran Khan, and those who were saying that Imran Khan is on the same page with the Pakistan army and that India should engage with Imran Khan. Also keep in mind, Imran Khan is on the same page with the Haqqani network, with the Lashkar-e-Taiba, with Jaish-e-Mohammed, and with Osama bin Laden. Should we be engaging with such elements, or is it time for India to continue pounding those terrorist training camps and destroying terror at source? I leave you with that thought. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.